I thought I had it all. A marriage that felt like a safe harbor. 12 years of shared dreams with the man I loved. But one evening, everything changed. I picked up my husband's phone, left unlocked on the kitchen counter, and saw a message from a stranger that stopped my heart. She still suspects nothing. After the anniversary trip, we file for divorce and take it all. Below it, a draft divorce agreement, ready to sign once they'd verified international assets. My hands shook as I scrolled further, finding emails from someone in my industry, a competitor, promising to split the profits of everything I'd built. The man I'd trusted with my heart was plotting to strip me bare, and I was standing in our home, staring at the proof. You ever have a moment where your whole world flips upside down? That was mine. Stick with me, because this is the story of how I fought back. Where are you listening from? Hit subscribe if you want to hear about a woman who refused to be broken. Let me take you back to who I am, or at least who I was before that night turned my life upside down. I'm Elise Harper, 38, with long brown hair I usually tie back when I'm buried in work, and a wardrobe that's more sleek blazers than cozy. Sweaters. I'm the CEO of BioVita, a biotech company I built from nothing, now worth over $2 billion thanks to a vaccine technology that saved countless lives. But don't let the fancy title fool you. I'm just a girl from the outskirts of Seattle, raised by a nurse mom and a dad who fixed cars for a living. They didn't have much, but they poured everything into me, always saying, "Elise, your mind is your greatest weapon. No one can take that away." Those words stuck with me, like a quiet fire in my chest. Growing up, I was the kid who'd rather dissect biology textbooks than hang out at the mall. While my friends plastered their walls with pop star posters, I was sketching molecular structures in my notebook, dreaming of ways to fight diseases. My parents didn't always get it, but they turned our tiny garage into a makeshift lab, complete with a secondhand microscope. That's where I fell in love with science. I worked hard, earned a scholarship to Stanford, and studied biochemistry, graduating at the top of my class. Big pharmaceutical companies came knocking, offering six-figure salaries, but I said no. I'd seen a gap in vaccine development, something no one else was tackling, and I wanted to fix it. At 24, with an $80,000 loan from my parents' savings and a stubborn streak, I founded BioVita in a cramped Seattle apartment. Those early years were brutal. I lived on instant noodles, worked 18-hour days, and heard no from investors more times than I can count. Some of them, mostly men in sharp suits, would smile politely and ask to speak to the real CEO, not believing a young woman could be both the brains and the boss. But every rejection just made me dig in harder. Then, 5 years in, a global health crisis hit, and my vaccine technology became the answer everyone was searching for. BioVita went from 3 employees to 300, and by my 35th birthday, we were a household name in biotech. That's when I met Nathan. It was at a medical conference in San Francisco, one of those glitzy events where everyone's networking or showing off. I was exhausted, sipping a glass of wine at the bar, when he walked up, tall, charming, with a smile that felt like it could light up the room. He was a financial consultant, sharp and confident, but what got me was how he asked about my work. Not my net worth, not the headlines about BioVita, but the science, why I cared about saving lives. Most people here just pitch their own ideas, I told him. I'd rather hear about yours, he said, his eyes warm and steady. Yours actually matter. We fell fast. Nathan was everything I thought I needed, ambitious but not threatened by my success, polished but grounded. 8 months later, he proposed on a cliff overlooking the Oregon coast, the waves crashing below us as he slipped a ring on my finger. I said yes without a second thought. Looking back, I see the cracks even then. His love for grand gestures, the way he always noticed the price tags on my world. But I was so caught up in the whirlwind, I didn't pause to question it. I thought we were building a life together. Turns out, he was building something else entirely. 12 years. That's how long I thought Nathan and I were a team, building a life together, sharing quiet mornings over coffee and late-night talks about the future. I was so sure of us that when our 12th anniversary approached, I threw myself into planning. Something special. A trip to rekindle the spark I'd felt fading. But life has a way of shattering the stories we tell ourselves, and mine came crashing down one rainy Seattle evening. Nathan had left his phone on the kitchen counter, something he never did. He'd stepped out for what he called a quick client meeting, and I was tidying up, humming to myself, when the screen lit up with a notification. I wasn't trying to snoop, honest to God, I trusted him, but the message preview stopped me cold. BioVita assets tracked. Divorce filing post-anniversary, Bali Villa confirmed. My stomach dropped. I stared at the words, my pulse hammering in my ears, and before I could talk myself out of it, I unlocked his phone. We'd always known each other's passcodes. That's what trust looks like, right? What I found wasn't just a betrayal. It was a calculated plan to unravel everything I'd built. There were texts from a number labeled C, someone Nathan was clearly close to. She still suspects nothing, one read. After the anniversary, we'll announce it. The payoff from Novogenics will set us up for life. Novogenics, our biggest competitor in biotech. My hands shook as I scrolled through emails, each one a dagger. Nathan had been feeding them details about BioVita's international contracts. Our patents, our accounts in Hong Kong. Attached was a draft divorce agreement, dated for filing a week after our anniversary trip, claiming half of everything I owned, including BioVita, on the grounds that he'd supported its growth. Supported? He'd never set foot in my lab, but the worst was yet to come. I found a thread between Nathan and this C, Claire, a marketing director at Novogenics. Their messages weren't just professional. They were intimate, cruel, laughing at me behind my back. She's too busy saving the world to notice, Claire wrote. We'll use her money to buy that Maldives mansion. She's practically funding our dream. I read it 3 times, each word burning deeper. They weren't just stealing my work. They were plotting a future together, built on my ruin. I felt sick, like the air had been sucked out of the room. Looking back, the signs were there, and I hate myself for missing them. Nathan had always been curious about my business, but I thought it was pride, not greed. He'd ask about our Hong Kong deals, suggest offshore trusts for tax benefits, and track BioVita's stock with an intensity that felt off. I brushed it aside, telling myself he was just a finance guy doing finance things. Then there were the late-night calls he'd take in the garage, the work trips with no receipts, the way he'd clam up when I walked into the room. I'd rationalized it all, stress, clients, the pressure of his job. But the truth was uglier. The kicker? He'd gone further than I ever imagined. Later, I'd learned he'd hidden a tiny drone in our home office, no bigger than a hummingbird, recording my Zoom calls with the board. Every strategy session, every confidential deal, he'd been watching, feeding it to Novogenics. I ran a company that protected millions of lives, yet I couldn't protect myself from the man sleeping next to me. That night, I sat in our garage, where I'd once built my first prototype, and cried until my throat was raw. The pain was physical, like a weight crushing my chest. How could I have been so blind? I'd spent years spotting flaws in molecules, but I missed the flaws in my own marriage. I tried to save us, you know. In the last year, when Nathan grew distant, I planned romantic getaways, suggested counseling, even questioned if I was the problem. It's just work, he'd say, flashing that charming smile. The Peterson account is killing me. Once it's done, we'll be back to normal. I believed him because I wanted to. I clung to the man I thought he was, not the one typing those messages to Claire. But sitting there, staring at his phone, I knew normal was gone forever. My marriage wasn't just broken, it was a lie. And I had 1 week to decide what to do about it. That night in the garage, with Nathan's phone burning a hole in my hand, I hit rock bottom. The betrayal wasn't just a knife in my heart. It was a wrecking ball, smashing every belief I had about love, trust, and the life we'd built. I could have stayed there, curled up in the dark, letting the pain swallow me whole. But something shifted. Maybe it was my dad's voice in my head saying, "Your mind is your weapon." Maybe it was the fire that had carried me through years of building BioVita from nothing. By sunrise, the tears were gone, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. Nathan thought he could outsmart me, but he was about to learn who he'd married. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew I could trust. Chloe, my best friend from Stanford and BioVita's CFO. "Meet me at that tiny cafe in Tacoma," I whispered. "Don't tell a soul." An hour later, we sat in a corner. Booth, rain streaking the windows as I laid out everything. The texts, the emails, the divorce papers. Claire. Chloe's face went pale, but her eyes narrowed when I mentioned Novogenics. "There's more," she said, hesitating. "Nathan's been asking about our Hong Kong accounts through back channels. I thought you'd approved it. And last month, our security team flagged weird access to your company email, traced to our home network." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a divorce plot. Nathan had been spying on me, maybe for months, using tools I didn't even know existed. Chloe leaned in. "There's a drone, Elise, a tiny one, hidden in your home office. It's been recording your calls." I felt like I'd been punched. My own home, my sanctuary, had become his surveillance hub. But that shock lit a spark. If Nathan wanted a war, I'd give him one he couldn't win. We didn't waste time. By noon, I'd assembled a team of people I'd trust with my life. First was Laura Bennett, Seattle's toughest divorce lawyer, someone Nathan once called too ruthless, with a smirk. Next was Evan Kim, my financial advisor who'd structured BioVita's assets before I even met Nathan. And then Maya Patel, BioVita's cybersecurity genius who confirmed the drone and found spyware on my personal laptop, capturing every keystroke. "This is professional grade," Maya said, her voice grim. "He's been watching you for a while." We had 7 days before Nathan returned from his so-called client trip, which, I later learned, was a getaway with Claire in the Caymans. 7 days to protect everything I'd built. We set up shop in a discreet law office across town, far from prying eyes. Laura laid out the legal landscape. Washington's a community property state, but assets you owned before marriage stay. Yours if they're not mixed. Nathan's banking on claiming BioVita's growth as marital property. We need to prove it's all rooted in your pre-marriage work. Evan mapped out the financial plan. Your Nevada holding company, set up before you met Nathan, owns BioVita's patents. That's untouchable. The Japan expansion you've been planning for 9 months gives us cover to move corporate assets legally. Maya added a twist. The drone and spyware are still active. We can feed Nathan fake info through them. Keep him thinking you're clueless. It was a brilliant, dangerous game, and I was all in. Day 1 kicked off with a board meeting I called under the guise of a competitive threat. BioVita's expansion to Japan, already in the works, got fast-tracked. By evening, $90 million in corporate assets started moving to our new Tokyo entity, completely legal, backed by months of planning. It was a smart business move, but for me, it was a lifeline. Nathan's drone recorded me making routine calls about the anniversary, oblivious to his plot. Meanwhile, the real work happened on secure devices in a rented office. Day 2 was about BioVita's heart, our vaccine patents. Evan and our patent lawyers tightened the paperwork, proving they'd always belonged to the Nevada company, untouched by Nathan. "We're not hiding anything," Laura said. "We're just making the truth ironclad." Day 3 and 4, we dug into my personal finances, tracing every pre-marriage investment, my Seattle condo, my early stock options, to show they'd grown naturally, not because of Nathan's so-called support. Day 5 was trust restructuring. I'd set up trusts before marrying Nathan, but he didn't know their terms. Evan's team ensured they were bulletproof, beyond his reach. Day 6, Maya worked her magic, planting fake emails through my compromised laptop, making it look like I was planning a lavish anniversary cruise. Nathan's drone ate it up, feeding him a story of a wife too lovesick to notice his knife. Day 7 was the closest we came to disaster. Nathan came home a day early, walking into the house while I was on a secure call with Laura. My heart stopped as he stood in the doorway, staring at me. "What's all this?" he asked, eyeing the papers on my desk. I forced a smile, my voice shaking. "Just anniversary plans, babe. I want it to be perfect." He nodded, but his eyes lingered, and for a moment, I thought he knew. I kept up, the act, chatting about Bali, while my mind screamed, "He's on to me." Somehow, I got through it, and he left for a meeting. That night, we finalized every detail, every document, every defense. The trap was set. When Nathan filed for divorce, the next morning, he walked in like a man who'd already won. The papers landed on my doorstep via courier, claiming half of BioVita and my personal fortune, citing his integral role in my success. I played the part, shocked, heartbroken, while Laura and the team sprang into action. At the first legal meeting, Nathan's lawyer smirked, tossing out numbers like they'd already carved up my life. But then Laura slid a stack of documents across the table. Board minutes, patent records, trust agreements, all proving BioVita's core assets were mine before Nathan ever entered the picture. The Japan expansion? A business decision, approved. 9 months ago. His claims had no ground to stand on. The real blow came when Maya took the stand. She presented the drone footage, not the fake calls, but the real ones, showing Nathan's coordination with Novogenics. Then came the emails with Claire, their cruel jokes about my blindness, their plans for a Maldives mansion. The courtroom went silent. Nathan's face drained of color, his lawyer stammering. He'd built his case on lies, and now those lies were choking him. The fallout was swift and brutal. Nathan's firm launched an ethics investigation, and within days his biggest clients bailed. Claire, seeing the money dry up, left him for a tech mogul in San Francisco. His partners forced him out, and the financial world that once praised his charm now whispered his name as a cautionary tale. He fled to Denver, scraping by as a freelance consultant, a shadow of the man he'd been. But the moment I'll never forget came a week before the case closed. Nathan showed up at our house, his confidence gone, his voice pleading. "Elise, you don't understand. I made mistakes, but I loved you." I looked him in the eye, every ounce of pain and power in my voice. "You thought you were smarter than me, Nathan. You forgot I built BioVita from nothing. This wasn't your game. It was mine." He froze, and for the first time, I saw him realize he'd underestimated me. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding, but not with fear, with clarity. When the dust settled, Nathan got what he deserved, though it was far less than he'd schemed for. The judge ruled in my favor, recognizing that BioVita and my core fortune were mine, built long before Nathan ever entered my life. He walked away with a small slice of our shared assets, a vacation home in Tahoe, nothing more. It was a fraction of the empire he and Claire had dreamed of stealing, their Maldives mansion now just a cruel joke. BioVita, meanwhile, soared. Our Japan expansion blew past projections, bringing in 40% more revenue than we'd hoped. I stood taller, knowing I'd protected not just my work, but the millions of lives it touched. But victory on paper didn't erase the scars. Nathan's betrayal had cracked something deep inside me. My trust, my belief in love, my confidence in my own judgment. I'd spent years spotting flaws in vaccines, yet I'd missed the poison in my own home. That hurt lingered, heavy and raw. So I did what I'd always done when faced with a problem. I tackled it head on. I found a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma, someone who didn't sugarcoat the pain but helped me sift through it. Healing isn't a straight line, she told me. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, others the grief will sneak up like a thief. She was right. I'd be fine for weeks, then find an old photo of Nathan and me and feel the ache all over again. I knew I couldn't stay in the house where it all happened. Every room held ghosts, our laughter, our fights, his lies. So I sold it to a young couple with bright eyes and big dreams, hoping they'd fill it with real love. I moved into a sleek apartment overlooking Puget Sound, where the water sparkled at sunset and the city hummed with possibility. It felt like a clean slate, a place untainted by betrayal. I started reconnecting with the people I'd let slip away during my marriage. Friends Nathan had subtly pushed out, family I hadn't leaned on enough. My college roommate Sarah flew in from Chicago and stayed for a week, reminding me how to laugh until my sides hurt. My parents, now retired in Oregon, came up every month, their quiet support like a warm blanket. We never trusted his polish, my dad admitted one night over dinner. But we wanted you happy. Their love, steady and real, showed me what I'd been missing. Work became my anchor, as it always had. BioVita launched a new vaccine protocol that won global acclaim, and we hired a wave of young scientists whose passion reminded me why I started this in the first place. But I wanted to do more, to turn my pain into something meaningful. So, 3 months after the divorce, I founded the Women's Autonomy Fund, pouring $25 million into helping women learn how to protect their finances in relationships. Money can be a chain in toxic partnerships, I said at the launch event, my voice shaking but strong. Knowledge is how you break free. Sharing my story, carefully without naming Nathan, was terrifying but freeing. Women came up to me afterward, some with tears in their eyes, telling me about their own battles, their own escapes. I realized my wounds weren't just mine. They were a bridge to others. Then there was Daniel. I wasn't looking for love. Honestly, I wasn't sure I'd ever trust it again. But Daniel, a pediatrician I met through a mutual friend, slipped into my life like a soft rain. He wasn't flashy, no grand gestures or private jets. For our first date, he brought me to a quiet beach near Seattle, just the two of us with a thermos of coffee and a blanket, watching the waves. "I'm not great at big romance," he said, almost shy. I smiled, my heart lighter than it had been in years. "I've had enough big romance to last a lifetime. I just want real." We took it slow, building something honest, grounded in small moments, walks, talks, his goofy laugh when I teased him about his terrible cooking. With Daniel, I learned that love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be true. Standing in my apartment now, watching the lights dance on Puget Sound, I feel a peace I didn't think was possible a year ago. Nathan's betrayal could have broken me, but instead, it woke me up. It stripped away my naive belief in fairy tale endings and gave me something better. A clear-eyed strength, a deeper trust in myself. I used to think love was a grand stage, all sweeping gestures and flawless scripts. Now I know it's the quiet, messy moments, the ones that don't need an audience. If you're listening and you've faced a betrayal of your own, let me tell you this. The darkest nights hold the seeds of your brightest days. Scars aren't signs of defeat. They're proof you fought and won. Nathan thought he could take everything from me, but he only took the illusions I didn't need. What's left is real. My work, my people, my heart, stronger than ever. Trust can be rebuilt, but this time, make it wise. Success tastes sweetest when it's earned, not stolen. And sometimes, losing what you thought you wanted clears the way for what you truly need. What's your story? Have you ever had to rebuild after someone broke your trust? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If this resonated with you, hit like and subscribe for more stories about finding light after the dark. Thanks for being here with me.